Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kurt Schroeder. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at Avtech Solutions. Welcome to the XCELERATE webinar series, and the first webinar of three, really trying to address decoding the crowded CX technology marketplace. So this is the first of three webinars, and we'll talk a little bit more about what's coming up. So really happy you were able to join us this morning. Really excited about that. Off to the side, you can shoot me questions as we're going along, and I'll try to address those as I see them come in. So I highly encourage you, if you have any questions throughout the presentation or throughout the discussion, please don't hesitate to code those in and shoot them off to me. So with that, why don't we get started? And this morning, what I'm going to cover is really talking about what is going on in the customer experience technology marketplace, and it's getting crowded, and it's getting more crowded each day, and it's becoming a very, very popular offering for a lot of organizations, a lot of software companies, at least that we see in the marketplace. And then what I'm also going to try to help you understand is what are these offerings really about, and how do we look at them and kind of bucket them into 4 or 5 categories, and hopefully providing that distinction will also be beneficial for you in how you look at those products and see how they may fit into your needs that you have. So one of the things that we're seeing is everyone is jumping on the CX bandwagon. It's very popular right now. Everything is about CX. You can't turn around and not see another offering coming onto the horizon, about customer experience. And many people are touting that they have a customer experience platform, which indicates that it's all inclusive, all things CX, and can meet most, if not all of your needs. So one of the things that we've been very mindful of is just because it's called CX, is it really CX, and is it really as broad as perhaps the language and marketing brochures or websites really tout? So over the next handful of minutes, what I'm going to try to do is unpack what we see in the marketplace and give you really some thinking around how to look at these CX products and really what they're aimed at. This is not meant to be an exhaustive CX software critique or evaluation. And so many of the products that you see on the little red CX bandwagon there are really representatives of classes of CX products that I think you should be aware of. So are there others out there? Absolutely. Again, it's not supposed to be an exhaustive list. We picked ones that we were familiar with. We have no necessarily biases in these. It was just a representative example as we go through our discussion, and thought it might be helpful to be able to show you some of those. It's interesting. In preparation for this, I used the Google machine and did a quick search, and all I did was type in CX platforms, and a number of things came up. First of all, numerous software evaluation organizations or websites had the top 10 CX platforms of 2018, or the top 20 CX platforms that you should be aware of, and and the list went on from there. In addition, a number of software organizations came up in that CX platform search as well. So there's an unexhaustible list of resources available to you, and you still have to be a little bit careful as you go to those websites and see what they portray as CX platforms as well. So there's a lot of choices you have. And over this webinar, as well as the next webinar, the next 2 webinars that we're going to provide, we're going to help you not only unpack what these platforms are for, but then how do you choose the best one, and then provide, the 3rd webinar is going to provide a case study of a client that we've worked with and how we made the choices of what CX platforms were going to be right for them. One of the things that we see, and I'm using Oracle as the example here, one of the things that we see is a rebranding exercise. So what used to be just called Oracle CRM is now Oracle Customer Experience, and they tout it as a broad, CX platform, but quite frankly, it's still CRM, marketing automation, service automation, etc. So a lot of rebranding is taking place in the marketplace, where something used to be CRM or used to be marketing automation or used to be service automation, and that now is being called CX. And so we do need to be aware and cautious that is it really a designed CX platform, or is it something that's just being rebranded in order to ride the wave of CX enthusiasm? And so I think there's a little bit of both. You'll see some platforms that are really developed from the ground up, aimed at customer experience, and then there's other platforms that are being rebranded and enhanced to try to attach itself to the excitement and enthusiasm around CX. And so one of the things that we believe is we really need to have a better definition in order to kind of figure out who's who in the zoo. We need to have a better definition, and because the marketplace is really getting diluted with many organizations, staking the claim, aligning themselves to CX, when really they provide just a very narrow sliver of what I would say is CX functionality. And so the rest of our discussion is really to help you compartmentalize the 4 or 5 categories of CX capabilities that we think are important, and we'll give you some examples of who we think plays in that space. So let's figure out who's who in the zoo. So the first of the 5 kind of core CX capabilities that you should really be considering is what I will call CX mapping and tracing. And these are products that have the capability and the functionality to help you do your journey mapping, as well as help you then trace the actual journeys that customers are going on. So and again, the products that I'm showing at the bottom are just simply representative examples. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list. So for example, Thunderhead is a neat little product that is very, very good at what it does, but it only does one thing, and it does it very well, which is it will trace the journey that a customer goes on when they're interacting with you. So it'll trace, if they start off in the contact center and then move to the web and then move to mobile, and they will also trace if that movement or if that journey goes backwards, not backwards necessarily in channel, but backwards in terms of the journey itself. And so that product is very good at helping me expose what is the current journey, what is the actual journey, what does it look like, especially cross channels. And so that provides that traceability. Snaply is a tool that just helps you, kind of get rid of Visio and PowerPoint as your primary journey mapping tools, and it's a very visual tool, but it helps you in your journey mapping exercises. So when you're trying to create a journey map, it has a variety of different templates and tools and functionality designed specifically for journey mapping. So we have found that to be very helpful to have a product that's designed specifically for journey mapping. It helps you accelerate the development and the visualization of your journey maps. So this first product category, is really narrowly focused on CX mapping and tracing. So it allows you to quickly identify what does the journey look like in your journey mapping exercise, and then really help you understand what is the actual journey through tracing the journey across channels. The second core capability that we see that is important and is also being claimed as kind of a CX platform is really the CX evaluation and feedback, or customer evaluation and feedback. And there's a variety of choices here available, and all with under that nomenclature of, you know, we're a CX platform. And so this is really the platforms that help you collect customer feedback across various channels, analyze that for either effort or even scoring net promoter score, and capturing feedback about the experience. Now, you know, 3-4 years ago, you know, these tools might have been just called, you know, customer feedback or survey tools. But as the technology has become more robust, they're really useful at understanding what the current experience is today and capturing the feedback from customers about that experience, and then being able to process that feedback in real time and perhaps intermediate the experience as it's happening. And so many of the tools, Medallia is an example of that, capture real-time feedback as it's happening with the customer, whether that might be on a mobile device, might be on the web, and then being able to interact with the customer, you know, based on their feedback, or remedy the situation before the customer is able to get on social media and complain about it. So these are good products for not only broad survey, but instantaneous interaction and feedback about the experience that the customer is having with you. The next capability that we see that is important is really this idea of CX service organization, or the orchestration of the experience itself. And this really ranges anywhere from deep workflow and dynamic workflow orchestration to contact center interaction across multiple channels, to even service orchestration through knowledge management and the ability to anticipate and react to customer requests or customer behavior as they're exhibiting their digital body language across mobile portals or websites, etc. And so we look at this class of CX capability as being really focused on helping organizations manage that digital and voice interaction with their customers, and being able to orchestrate it across channels. And so we see these platforms being very, very good at helping you move into that true omni-channel, not multi-channel, but omni-channel interaction, you know, with customers, and helping to orchestrate which channel is best suited for which kind of interaction, track the usage of those channels, and then also be able to understand where are certain personas migrating to as they interact with you and trying to accomplish something in specific channels. And so we see this class of platforms being very, very good at that. But to support all that, you really need, you know, what I would say is the fourth class of platforms, which is quite frankly it's been around for a long time, but it's CRM. It's the customer experience, customer management. In other words, some central location, some place where we can create that golden record of what has a customer done with us across all of our channels, and how do we record and capture the information so we can create an ongoing history of those customer interactions, what they've done with us transactionally, so we can orchestrate improved experiences with them. And we can serve up that information then to be used by marketing to create more personalized offers to them based on what their experience is with us, not only their interactions, but also the transactions, the things they do, the things they buy, comments they make, the data that they provide us in their feedback mechanisms. And so we don't think CRM is going away. We think it's becoming even more and more powerful, especially as you integrate the CRM platform to some of your orchestration platforms and your ability to trace journeys. So we're still very, very bullish on these kinds of platforms. We think there's some very, very good choices in the marketplace, and how they interact with your orchestration platforms becomes important. And then finally, the fifth platform that we see is really around customer experience analytics. And so what do we know, and how do we analyze these interactions against the transactions? And so a number of platforms are getting involved in this, whether it's from IBM Watson all the way to, Microsoft's Power BI, are very, very effective tools at looking at that data, creating predictive analytics so we can predict which set of personas are going to use which channel and when, and what are they expecting from those channels, so that we can tune up the experience to even a greater degree. And then, quite frankly, go all the way back to the tracing platforms, where we can see if the customer is migrating and journeying through those channels the way that we expected them to be. We can start looking at analytics around when are people dropping out of certain channels, when are people dropping out of certain activities that they're interacting with you, and being able to use the analytics to figure out how do we improve those, and how do we get the most value from those channels and from those interactions that customers are having. So this fifth set of platforms really involves the analytics and gluing together or integrating together, various data sets, so that we have a full picture of not only what happens when we improve the experience, but what's the downstream effect on revenue, on service behavior, and other measures that we might believe are important to the organization. So this analysis of the results and the behaviors and the impact and the correlation to financial results is what we study in this set of platforms. And so really you can kind of see that we've unpacked these 5 core platforms, one being traceability and journey mapping, the second being the ability to measure and capture a voice of customer, through these platforms. The third being around orchestration. So we're orchestrating the experience itself. The fourth being around capturing that data in a CRM platform to be used by the various functions within the organization. And finally, the fifth, then being able to do the analysis and analytics against all the data that we've captured to date. So if there's, I'll just check real quick here, see if there's any questions that have come in. If you have any, please go ahead and capture those, send them to me, and I'll certainly respond. So hopefully this has given you a good overview of what these platforms are, how we look at them. We don't believe there's a product in the marketplace that does all 5 of those things exceptionally well. There's certainly some that are playing in multiple areas. But in our next webinar, what we're going to do is talk about how do you choose amongst all this? How do you choose the right platforms for the CX capability your organization really needs? We're going to unpack a process that we like to take customers through, give you some tools that you can use in your organizations to help choose that right platform or group of platforms, and then be able to have really true CX success in aligning your technology to the customer experience that you want to be able to deliver to your customers. So mark your calendars. It's scheduled for October 18th, so just a couple weeks away. and we'll do that at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. So we really look forward to having your participation on the next webinar. And then the third webinar, we'll do a case study so that we can talk about using those tools, applying it to a client that we had, and the results that we saw from that. Make sure that you're available for that third webinar as well. So with that, again, my name is Kurt Schroeder. I'm the Chief Experience Officer at AvTech Solutions. Really appreciate your time and attention. Hopefully you found this valuable and worthwhile. Hopefully it gives you a way to think structurally about the different technologies that are out there and how you should use them and how you should apply them to better enhance the customer experience that you're delivering. So thank you very much. I'll look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, and I hope you each have a wonderful day. Thank you.